Welcome back everyone to a video, and today we are ranking every single NFL team's offense head into the 2024 season. It's quickly approaching, at least the first game of the regular season is. And I did this video, I want to say 2 months ago. I didn't actually rank them, I just had grades like A, B, C, D, and so on, where I ranked teams. And I had a comment someone made, so shout out to whoever that is. I can't remember your name, but I'll have it on the screen right now, saying that in their opinion, I should probably rank it like actually, 1 through 8 and whatever, so people can actually know exactly where I have the offenses. And I do that for my team power rankings already, but I thought this would actually be a great idea for the offenses for my next video, because in that previous video I said I would do that video again, and here we are. And I think it's actually probably a better format to do it like this now that the season is closer. So thank you for the comment, I really appreciate it. And if you guys would like to have a chance to be featured in any other videos with any video ideas, comment those down below. I would really appreciate it. I do a lot of team rankings, player rankings, team news, player updates, all that kind of stuff. Is always NFL content on the channel on the road to 1,000 subscribers. I would appreciate all the support there. If you could just take a second to hit the subscribe button and leave a like, I would appreciate that. We're also closing on 700, so thank you guys for all the support there too. So for today's video though, so we have 1 through 8, 9 through 16, 17 through 24, and 25 through 32. So we'll have 4 rows of 8 teams. We're going to start from the worst and make our way all the way up. The last time I made this video was 2 months ago, so a lot has happened since then. Some players have been injured, some have got healthy. We've seen a bit more of some offenses now that we are 2 weeks into the preseason and with only 1 week left. So I'm excited to be able to do this with a more updated kind of perspective on a lot of these teams, and it will be a bit different than the thing I did before. So into it right now though, team 32, it's going to be the Patriots. And again, I am actually very optimistic for the Patriots' future, and I did a video on Drake May a few months ago, and like the guys they got to surround him already, and I really feel like they're already doing a better job at drafting young talent at receiver than they did in Mac Jones' entire tenure there. Like, I don't think they really did that for Mac Jones. They brought in Juju. That doesn't really count. Now we're like, they're drafting Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. Like, you're making moves to get playmakers at receiver, and that's what a young quarterback needs. However, because there are a lot of guys on offense that are either unproven or in their first year, I just can't rank them higher than guys that have already established themselves as players in the league. So I'm not saying their future is bad or the players are bad. They're just unproven. So I personally think that they will be good, but just not quite this year. Or at least it's too early to make that statement now, in my opinion. And the next up is going to be the Giants. And it really sucks doing this because I stuck up for the Giants going into last season. I was all on board saying that 2022 was not a fluke, and not good. It seems like it may have been. Last year was bad. Daniel Jones was down to torn ACL, and then preseason just this past week. Which look, to be clear, I know it does not matter. I know it's just preseason, but still, it's good to see good things in preseason. It's good to see players show good flashes. And Daniel Jones played a half of football and looked horrible. I mean, he looked really, really bad. 2 interceptions, one of which was a terrible pick six. The huge spot for me, with I think most people at this point, is Malik Nabers. I think his talent is absolutely undeniable. It sucks not having a stable quarterback to be able to give him the ball, but you know what? At least you have a solid wide receiver 1 for years to come locked in. But because of Daniel Jones, the quarterback position holds me back on predicting the Giants to be much better than this. Love Malik Nabers. I think Tyron Tracy, the backup running back, I think has a lot of potential as well. But other than that, I'm really not sold. Like Darius Slayton, he's a solid receiver. Not sure what to expect from Wando Robinson or Jalen Hyatt. There's just too many question marks for me. That's why they're this low. And this next one might come as a bit of a surprise, but I'm going to actually have the Saints down this far. And I have to be consistent with what I've said in the past, or at least close to it. And I've really, from the moment the Saints went and got Derek Carr, I have not agreed with that move at all. I had said, you can go back to my first video ever talking about it, and I just felt like it was such a just disappointing move. It's not someone that was going to turn this team around. It's not something you can count on for the next 6-7 seasons to build around. Like, it's just, it seemed very pointless. It didn't elevate the guys around you, and now you have yet another aging player at a very important position on this roster, and that's really what hurts the Saints for me as a whole. Offensively, there's guys to be really excited about. I think Chris Olave has incredible potential, but I don't think he's going to hit that as long as Derek Carr is on this team. I think Rashid Shaheed is very underrated, and he's a great deep threat. But again, I don't think he can be the best version of himself with Derek Carr. Alvin Kamara, while getting older, is still very impactful in the receiving game. And Kendre Miller, who I've made, videos talking about before, or at least in Saints videos, I think he's going to be really good. So maybe you lean more into that this season to help move the ball, because as long as you have Derek Carr in there, you're going to have some great games, you're going to have some bad games, but the issue is you're not going to lose enough to be able to take a high quarterback in the draft. Derek Carr is just good enough to give you hope, to get you close to the playoffs, but not make it, and then be stuck with like a meaty, like a not mediocre draft pick, but like, right there in like the early teens for a draft pick. And then, you get someone solid, but a lot of the really good quarterbacks are going much higher. The Saints need a franchise quarterback. They need someone else to build behind or to build around. And Derek Carr is just not that guy. And because of that, I'm just not very high on this team at all. And then right there with them is my personal favorite team, the Panthers. Now, the reason I had the Panthers ahead of the Saints by one spot is because I do believe in Bryce Young. And even if you don't, at the very least, he still has more years left in him, assuming he goes to a different team and does well or whatever, than Derek Carr probably has. I think a young quarterback with a lot of talent, I feel better about than an aging quarterback with, increasing struggles as the years go on. For Bryce Young, though, I think last year was horrendous. And I've said this before that, yes, he had terrible circumstances. He had terrible coaching, terrible play calling, terrible offensive line, terrible receivers, but also he himself, when asked to make throws downfield, he didn't do it. He wasn't as pro-ready as he was labeled in the draft. He did not play well on his own. This year, I expect him to be better. I think he will be better. Dave Canales seems to be the guy for the job when it comes to helping quarterbacks. He did it for Geno in Seattle, and he did it for Baker last year in Tampa Bay. I think he can help Bryce Young a lot as well. And the weapons are better this year. They're not great, but they're better. You get Deontay Johnson in there. You still have Adam Thielen. You draft Xavier Legette. I love those moves, and you even draft Jatavion Sanders for tight end and Jonathan Brooks for running back. So you have weapons, and that's why this year I feel like is a big year for Bryce Young, because if he struggles again, you don't have as many excuses as you did last year, because this year you have different coaching, you have better receivers, and a better offensive line. You went and got two new offensive linemen, one being Robert Hunt, who you gave a ton of money to, the other one being Damian Lewis, who you also gave a good amount of money to. So this year, if he struggles, there's not as many excuses. So we'll see what happens. I'm a believer in him, but at the very least, it's still not going to be a very good offense. It's going to have a lot of growing pains at, probably the very least. And then next up, I have the Titans. Now, the Titans actually have a relatively high ceiling, but there's a lot of variables for me that, I'm just not totally sold on. Tony Pollard, I think, has great potential. Very dynamic running back, but he didn't do all that great in Dallas last year with the running back one role. To be fair, he was coming off that horrible ankle break or leg. I can't remember if it broke his leg or his ankle, but it was one of those. He's coming off that injury. Now he is over a year removed from that, so maybe he's gonna be better. I don't know, but still, being the running back one, I'm not completely sold on. I do like Tajay Spears there though for back two for the Titans. And then as far as receiver goes, you get Tyler Boyd, who is just kind of a shell of his former self at this point. He's solid, but he's not gonna be someone that he once was in Cincinnati for a time. Hopkins is still amazing for his age. He does have a knee injury, though, I believe, right now, and he might miss the first couple of weeks, which sucks. But you still have him, and then you also sign Calvin Ridley. Now, that's a big move, and it's my favorite signing the Titans made all offseason, including the L'Jarius Sneed signing, because I think it proves that you are going to give Will Levis a shot to really prove himself, because he showed a lot of good flash last year. He has an amazing arm, or at least arm strength. He is a tough runner if he has to. I think he showed a lot of really good things. So being able to commit to him, give him weapons, going and getting guys like Tyler Boyd and Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley, you're giving him a real shot. So I think the Titans offense will be good. I think it has a much higher ceiling. But at the same time, I don't think Calvin Ridley or Tony Pollard are guys you can count on week in and week out on producing these super high numbers. I think they'll have good weeks here and there, but not consistent enough to really be a top offense. And then next, it feels weird ranking them this low, but next is going to be the Chargers. And I love Justin Herbert. I think Herbert's great. But at a certain point this year, the lack of talent around him has to catch up to him. It just, you can't be trotting out Quentin Johnston and thinking this is going to be a top 10 offense. Unless he improves a ton or something else happens. I think Ladd McConkey will be great. I think it was a great draft pick. I liked him. I honestly wanted the Panthers to get him. I was fine with who they took, but I think McConkey is still a great pick. Joshua Palmer, he's a solid receiver. But after that, DJ Chark, he was just in Carolina. I had to watch that for a whole season. He is not consistent enough to be a guy you can count on every week. Quentin Johnston, maybe he steps up. I don't really know. But other than that, you have Gus Edwards, which is pretty cool. He is a good running back. You get J.K. Dobbins too. I think he just has so many significant lower body injuries at this point. It's just kind of wraps, unfortunately. But you do have Kamani Vidal, who I've heard is a very underrated prospect and could be a big player for this team. I'm going to be honest, I don't know a lot about him other than he had a very high break tackle rate, I think, in college. So that's definitely what you'd like to hear. It sounds like a Jim Harbaugh guy anyway. Maybe they'll be good, but I can't, like, with the lack of talent, as great as Herbert is, it has to be capped off at a certain point, and I just don't see it being a top offense, at least this year. Then next up, I have the Broncos, and I'm going to be honest, this team was ranked a bit lower than this just weeks ago, honestly, for me. But from what I've seen in preseason, and I'm not going to start jumping to conclusions, Bo Nix, honestly, has kind of proved me wrong a little bit. I really didn't think he would look as polished as he does. He looks to be a very good passer. And that just sounds so just dumb saying it like that. But truthfully, I really didn't think he would do a good job reading the field and distributing the ball well. And he's on it. That's been one of his strengths, to be honest. So he's definitely surprised me a little bit there. But at the end of the day, it is preseason. We haven't seen anything else yet. And even if Bo Nix is really, really good and proves me wrong, I'm not sold at receiver anyways. You have Courtland Sutton, who's great. You draft Troy Franklin, though. And from what I've heard, it's kind of a wild card at this point, whether he'll be really good or just not. You have Marvin Mims, but after that, is Tim Patrick going to be good this year? He's coming off a torn ACL and Achilles. So I don't know if Bo Nix really has the weapons to lead this offense to be a top one in the league, even if he does really impress in year one. Great running back room, though. I mean, you got McLaughlin and P. Ryan and Estime and someone else I'm forgetting too, Javonte Williams. So you have a really good running back room. That'll be interesting to see the dynamic that that kind of takes form in this season. But overall, the Broncos are still fairly far down this list. And then rounding out the bottom 8 is going to be the Commanders. And here's the thing. I've said this before, I think, when making a Jayden Daniels video. This team is such a just wild card for me because I don't really know what the ceiling is. Because Jayden Daniels on his own is a phenomenal athlete. I love the, RPO type offense that they've shown so far in preseason. It's what we expected anyway with them getting Cliff Kingsbury. I think Jahan Dotson holds me back a little bit, as weird as that sounds. McLaurin's great, but Jahan Dotson he's been a bit underwhelming, and I don't even know if the coaching staff is really blown away by him right now. I've heard something saying they're really just kind of oh well, if he plays, he plays. If not, oh well. He's not really on their priorities. So I don't know if that's really, super true. I don't try and read into those things too much, but I do think it's at least worth noting. So other than that, though, you have McLaurin. You have Ben Sinnott. That is something that I said back in April is a guy to watch because he's just basically a good vertical threat. That's his strength. He's a good pass-catching tight end. I think it's great to give Daniels another weapon like that. I think Daniels can lead this offense to have a very high ceiling. And I love Brian Robinson Jr. I think he's a very underrated running back. Eckler is not who he used to be, but at the very least, he can get some, receiving touchdowns probably within 5 yards. So I think this offense can be really good. It's just a matter of how good it'll be in year one and if the talent really allows them to reach that potential. I think it'll still be a bottom 8 offense, and they'll struggle a little bit, but I think next year, you can really get a lot of hype going on this offense next year. And then number 24 is going to be the Raiders. And interestingly enough, I was honestly kind of assuming Aiden O'Connell was going to be the guy all offseason. And then yesterday it comes out, Gardner Minshew was actually named the starter for week 1. And I like that. Not that I have anything against Aiden O'Connell, but Minshew is, you kind of know what you're getting. You're not going to get someone that's going to have this, phenomenal week, but you're not going to get someone that has a terrible week either, at least not usually. He'll have his huge, stinkers, I guess, every once in a while, but for the most part, Minshew is fairly consistent, and he's a competent quarterback. I wouldn't say he's great, but he can get the job done, and honestly, I'd rather go with that over Aiden O'Connell at this point, because Minshew showed last year on the Colts, he can lead teams to get wins. Even if they're not pretty wins, he can get wins. And that's what this Raiders team needs. They just need wins. It's been a very disappointing last couple seasons. But again, at this point, Minshew now has Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, and Brock Bowers all to work with. He has pretty good weapons. So I'm interested to see how this goes. You have Zamir White running back, and then Alexander Madison there as well. You have a lot of really exciting guys. So again, maybe Minshew just goes off and this team jumps up a couple spots. I don't know. But for me, they're just number 24. And then next is the Steelers, number 23. And this one, at a certain point, I think it seemed very solidified that Brandon Ayuk was going to the Steelers. And now it seems like he's probably not. So if he ends up getting traded after I make this video, I'm going to be a little annoyed because it completely changes the dynamic of that offense, and they would be much higher up here. But they are at number 23 because, first off, at quarterback, I'm really not sold on Fields or Russell Wilson. I think Wilson does deserve the starting job because he is the veteran, which I know sounds stupid, but just hear me out for a second. He is the veteran, and you don't owe him any money. You're paying him like $1 million to go out there and play football. So have the guy that's experienced go in there because, again, in my opinion, the more Justin Fields is able to sit and just be coached and watch, I think the better it is for him. He didn't really get that opportunity in Chicago, and I think it really hurt his development. If the Steelers can just let Fields rest and you start Russell Wilson each week, I mean, Russell Wilson, I think, is a competent quarterback. At this point in his career, I'm not very high on him personally. I think he still should get the starting job, though, because, like I said before, you're only paying him $1 million. If this guy happens to struggle, you're not losing anything just to pull him out. So I would rather give the guy you don't owe anything to a shot first, and then if he ends up sucking, you're like, okay, yeah, this isn't going anywhere. Just take him out, put him in Fields. You're not really losing anything. $1 million is nothing. The Broncos are paying everything else he's owed. So for that reason, quarterback is a little unstable for me for the Steelers. I'm not super sold. I think it could go either way. I think Fields has obviously the higher ceiling at this point in his career. But other than that, like, you have George Pickens, you draft Robin Wilson, who could be very, very good. You have Van Jefferson, Pat Freiermuth, and then you have Jalen Warren and Najee Harris there at running back. You have a very good offense. It just really depends on the way it's ran. And the way it's ran from the quarterback position has held it back the past few seasons. So I'm not sure what to expect, to be honest, but I'm not sold on either quarterback. That's why they're fairly low down this list. And then next is going to be the Jaguars. And I actually like the Jaguars a lot. And I am a believer in Trevor Lawrence. And I think last year he got a lot of slander, which I think was warranted sometimes, not warranted other times. It was clear after that injury his numbers did decline a bit. And I think the Jaguars led the league in, like, drop touchdowns anyway. So, like, that's a little telling. Not everything was on Trevor Lawrence. And also, Christian Kirk, I think, is better as the wide receiver one. I think getting Calvin Ridley in there was better in theory than it actually played out. I think it honestly made things a little just kind of discombobulated. So, I don't know. I think Christian Kirk is good as wide receiver one, and then you draft Brian Thomas Jr., who definitely has potential to be wide receiver one, but it's nice because he's not really going to be thrown into a role he's not ready for. I think his floor is a wide receiver 3, but I think wide receiver 2 is where he can just honestly just instantly walk in week 1 and be at that level. So I think it's very good for Jacksonville. And you still have Evan Ingram, who led the team in targets and I think receptions last year. He had a huge year for him. And Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby there at running back. It's a very good offense. I think they bounced back this year. They're a bit higher than I would have had them by the end of last year, the way they were looking. So I do think they'll be better, but, I guess we'll just see how that goes with Christian Kirk and Brian Thomas Jr. And then next is going to be the Seahawks, and the Seahawks have a really cool offense. Like, I like watching them. I don't really know why, but I like the DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, I guess, duo, because they're such different players. Like, they're built totally different. Their style of play is completely different. But I think they complement each other very, very well because of that. Geno Smith does a very good job of just getting the ball out and really keeping it away from pressure for the most part. He doesn't normally make a ton of turnover-worthy plays. Jackson Smith and Jigba, though, I think will have a much better year 2. I think in year 1, it was a bit underwhelming. But at the same time, he's competing with Metcalf and Lockett for targets. Like, he kind of had to wait his turn a little bit. I think he's very talented, though. I think he can have a huge year 2. And then you have Kenneth Walker there at running back with Zach Charbonnet. This is a very good Seahawks offense. They're in a pretty tough division, though. You got the Rams and the 49ers in there. I think it'll be very interesting, but I do think it'll be a very solid offense. And then next up is going to be the Cardinals, and I'm actually very high on the Cardinals offense this year. Not the defense, but I'm very high on the offense. I think Kyler Murray, as I said before, but I think he really is one of the more overhated quarterbacks in the league with all the Call of Duty jokes and all the short jokes. I mean, Kyler Murray, when healthy, is one of the best dual-threat quarterbacks in the entire NFL. He's not the best, but he is definitely up there. And I think he's had when he's had good weapons like DeAndre Hopkins and when he had Christian Kirk, they were like 8-0, and then they kind of imploded that one year. I think that was 2021. But they were like 8-0 at one point. Like he's proven to be able to win games. And so now that he has, basically an entirely different offense other than James Conner, you draft Trey Benson, who I think is a good backup running back. But of course, you draft Marvin Harrison Jr., and he's, one of the best wide receiver prospects in a very long time. He's an instant day one, wide receiver one. And you also still have Michael Wilson, and that's really someone that I feel like wasn't talked about very much last year because the Cardinals were just not that good. No one cared. But he had a good rookie season, and I think he's very underrated. I've said that before, but I think he's very underrated. And then also, Trey McBride, that's the big one at tight end. He, I think, has a lot of hype around him going into this year. I'm excited to see what this team can do with a full offseason now of a healthy Kyler Murray with a new head coach in there. I think the offense will be very exciting. I think the defense holds his team back a lot, though. And they're in a tough division. So might not amount to a whole lot of wins, but I think it is a pretty good offense. Next is going to be the Buccaneers. And I'm very happy to rank the Buccaneers this high because I'm a Baker Mayfield fan. I really think he got done dirty in Cleveland. He got done dirty in Carolina. He had a crazy random, end of season run with the Rams. And then he went to Tampa Bay last year and he looked really, really good. I think he'll be good again this year. You still got Mike Evans there, which is a huge, re-signing. You have Chris Godwin playing out of the slot where he has been more productive statistically in the past. So that's a good move by them. You have Trey Palmer there still, and you also draft Jalen McMillan, I think is his name. You also draft Bucky Irving for backup running back, and then you also have Rachaad White for starting running back. I think the Buccaneers offense will be quite good. I think the Buccaneers surprised a lot of people last year, and I think it's very easy for them to slip under the radar right now as well. This team didn't really get a whole lot worse. They didn't really lose a whole lot, at least offensively speaking. So I think they're definitely an offense to watch out for. I think they're still very, very good, and I think it'll be a very efficient offense in 2024 too. And then number 18 is going to be the Vikings, and it sucks that McCarthy went down because he looked really good in that preseason game. And I feel like people sometimes, you just can't say that without people being like, oh, it's preseason, doesn't matter. Which, yeah, I mean, of course it doesn't matter, but would you rather them look terrible or would you rather them look good? You'd rather them look good. You want to see the good flashes preseason or not. So it's good that he looked good in preseason, but unfortunately, wait a whole year now to see him actually play in the actual season. But again, aside from McCarthy, I had to watch a full season of Sam Darnold in Carolina, and to be fair, Sam Darnold is not very fun to watch. Sometimes it's like a beautiful pass, and then the next time it's a beautiful pass, but it's into double coverage and it's picked off. And there's really no telling what you're going to get. To be fair, he has, I mean, I guess a lot of quarterbacks haven't had Justin Jefferson, but Darnold's not had weapons near this good. In Carolina, he had DJ Moore, but that was a bit early on before Moore was really, really good. He was still good then, but not to where he is now. He did have McCaffrey, but now you're in an offense where you have Justin Jefferson, you have Jordan Addison, you have Hawkinson whenever he's healthy, you have Aaron Jones, you have Ty Chandler. You have a lot of guys that can make plays, and if Darnold could just clean up the random passes that make no sense that he throws sometimes, I think the Vikings offense can be really good. But again, Darnold, I don't trust to be consistent all year with this team. Jefferson on that team or not. So that's why the Vikings are, unfortunately, a bit further down than they probably should be. And then the final team to round out the bottom half is going to be the Colts. The Colts, I think, have a very high ceiling, but again, we haven't seen much of Anthony Richardson. I'm a believer in him. I think he's going to have a huge year. But at the end of the day, I can't rank that over some of the teams I have ahead of him. But, you have Josh Downs now going to year 2. You have Michael Pittman Jr., who you re-signed, one of the more underrated wide receivers in the entire NFL, in my opinion. Jonathan Taylor is still back there at running back. You have Trey Sermon at backup running back. Kyle Granson there at tight end, I believe, is their starter. And then you also, of course, draft A.D. Mitchell, which is a huge move. He fell a bit far in the draft. I think he's a great player, though, and he can be very, very good for them. So Colts offense, I think, is a very high ceiling. But, again, quite a few unknowns as well, which is why they are kind of held back. But, yeah, so that is the bottom 16. Let me know down below what you guys think of the bottom 16. And I'm not going to lie, this ranking is probably one of, if not the hardest I've ever done. It was very hard to rank these offenses, especially the top 16. So I'm just going to say this right now. There are going to be a lot of teams in this top 16 that you guys probably think should be in different spots. So, and look, if it's like a 2-spot difference, it's fine. But if it's 5-6 spots, definitely comment down below why you think I'm either sleeping on an offense or why I'm overrating them. Just let me know down below. I'd be very interested to hear you guys out on that because, again, these rankings were very, very tough. The bottom 16 were pretty tough, but the top 16 were very difficult to rank 1 through 16. And oddly enough, at number 16, it's going to be the Bills. And it feels weird ranking the Bills down this far, but you lose Stephon Diggs, you lose Gabe Davis, and, you know, I don't want to say you didn't make a move to surround Josh Allen with anybody, but I'm not going to lie, I was expecting more than just getting Curtis Samuel. It's not that I think he's bad, but he cannot be the guy, in my opinion. And I think Curtis Samuel is a great playmaker. I think he's really good after the catch, but I don't see him being like a wide receiver 1. You draft Keon Coleman, who I think can be very, very good, but he's not much of a separator, so I guess that's kind of what you have Curtis Samuel for, I guess, and then Coleman's more of like that aggressive, 50-50 balls that he makes, 70-30 balls, and he can catch those. But other than that, I'm not really loving receiver. I think Dalton Kincaid at tight end, though, is a very nice, addition to the team last year, and I think he can be one of their bigger targets this year. James Cook is their running back, and then backup is Ray Davis, who you drafted. I think it's a pretty good running back room, but at the end of the day, you don't have the playmakers at receiver that you've had in the past. Josh Allen, though, he's going to carry this team, and that's really why I still can see the Bills being very competitive this year. Is Josh Allen is not one to just, the guys around are bad, oh well, just all going to fall apart. Like, I think with or without guys like Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen is the type of player that will elevate the guys around him. He can make plays happen with his legs. He can obviously get the ball deep. He has amazing arm strength. He can do a little bit of everything. And so I do think while the guys around him on paper are not very good or not as good as Diggs and Davis may have been, I don't think it's like, hit the panic button. They're going to be competitive. It's going to be a very tough offense, but there is definitely a talent drop-off from what we've seen just a couple seasons ago. And then number 15 is going to be the Jets. This is one that I am not as high on as a lot of other people are. I have them fairly far down, I guess, in the top 16, which, top 6, you're in the top half of the league. It's still quite good. But, I think Rodgers being there is going to be huge for Garrett Wilson. You have Mike Williams you brought in there. If he can be healthy from that ACL tear, he is a very, very good receiver. Kind of like that Keon Coleman archetype. That would be a good, I think, I'm not sure about player comp, but just the same kind of style of guys that are able to go up and just get the ball over people. So you have Mike Williams there. Malachi Corley you draft, and you have Breece Hall running back, and you have Braylon Allen at backup running back, who you also drafted. I think you have, one of the better, if Rodgers can step in here and be huge for the Jets, you have a huge wide receiver 1 and a huge running back 1. It can be a very dynamic offense, and I think it'd be very deadly. But again, I don't know what to predict for a older quarterback coming off an Achilles tear, that he's on a new team. There's still some question marks for me. There's question marks at wide receiver depth. I think the big playmakers on this team are amazing, but I think there is a bit of a concern as you go down the depth chart. But again, Rodgers, if anyone, I just said Josh Allen elevates guys. If anybody elevates guys, it's Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. So the Jets offense, I think, will be very good, but I have him there at number 15. And this is a little crazy. I'm not going to lie. I've only been doing these type of NFL videos, well, I think for probably, 2 years now. I did, 1 year before, 2021, but, I didn't know what I was doing at all. But now, I guess, for the past 2 years I've been doing this, I don't think I've ever ranked a team with a rookie quarterback this high without seeing anything yet, and that is going to be the Bears at number 14. And it's crazy to me because, even last year with the Texans, as the year went on, I, of course, in the power rankings I was making, I moved them up, higher and higher and higher, but I did not have them even close to this going into the year. Same with the Panthers, not them either. So for me to do this, I'm very high on the Bears. I think Caleb Williams is going to be an instant top 15 quarterback quite easily. I think he has he's in one of the better situations I can remember for a rookie quarterback in a while. You have DJ Moore, you have Keenan Allen, you have DeAndre Swift there at running back, you have Gerald Everett, you have Cole Kmet at tight end. You have weapons really all over the field, and you draft Rome Odunze as well. And I've said this before in past videos that, Williams gets, the Mahomes comparisons because, their mannerisms and stuff like that, but Caleb Williams does not have to be Patrick Mahomes, and that's what I think is so key for people to, to pick up on a little bit for this offense. Williams doesn't need to be the superstar quarterback in year 1. If he is even just an average quarterback, this Bears team is still going to be very good. I mean, this offense has been assembled with a clear vision in mind where you don't need a superstar quarterback to be plugged in there and light it up. You're still going to be very competitive even with an average quarterback. But then when you factor in just how good can Caleb Williams actually be, if he hits that superstar level in year one, that ceiling only raises higher. Because to me, the floor for the Bears in year one is still, offensively, is still quite high. So I think they're going to be very competitive. They're in a very tough division, though, so it's going to be very interesting to see how things shake out. But I can't wait to see it. They are in the top 16 for offenses. And then it pains me to do this, but at number 13 is going to be the Falcons. I'm going to be honest. I hate the Falcons. I'm a big Panthers fan. I cannot stand the Falcons. But this team has just made move after move over the past couple of seasons to just be able to go in, go full win mode, just win now. And I think it's time to do that. Last year they improved that defense when they got Jesse Bates. And then even this year, you just signed Justin Simmons. You trade for Matt Judon. Like, you're getting the pieces that you have weaknesses at to go and be competitive. The biggest thing, though, offensively, I think it's so funny looking back on how good the Falcons could have been the past few years on offense, but just weren't because of quarterback and poor coaching. I mean, it's so bad to look at. But now that you have Kirk Cousins in there, new head coach, new offensive coordinator, I believe, I think, actually. Now I'm questioning myself. New head coach at the very least. This team is going to be so much better on offense. Kirk Cousins is going to be able to distribute that ball all over the field with guys like Drake London there, and you have Kyle Pitts there, which is crazy because Kyle Pitts, his ceiling, man, it's way up there. We saw it in his rookie year. If he can get back to that with a good quarterback, he's going to be one of the better tight ends in the entire NFL. And then you also have Bijan Robinson, who I think is going to have a monster year. I really think after this season, he'll be a top 5 running back pretty easily, maybe even top 3. I think it's going to be pretty easy to tell. So again, huge season for the Falcons. I think it's what's going to be coming up, unfortunately, but very, very good offense. As a football fan, I'm excited to see it, but as a fan of a division rival team, I'm not looking forward to it. The number 12 is going to be the Browns. This is one that I was a little unsure where to rank because, I mean, having someone like Nick Chubb, it changes your offense. I mean, he's one of, if not the best running back, I guess probably behind McCaffrey, but he's one of the best running backs in the NFL when healthy. But when do you get him back? Do you get him back, week 3? Do you get him back week 9? We don't really know yet, so it's a little tough to rank that. At the very least, though, without Nick Chubb in the picture, I think the Browns' offense is still very, very good. You have Amari Cooper, who is not talked about enough, in my opinion. You trade for Jerry Jeudy, who can be very, very good if he can actually stay healthy. You still have Elijah Moore. Jerome Ford is a very good running back, and then you also have David Njoku at tight end. You have a lot of guys, but I've said this before, and I'm going to stand by it, even if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, it is what it is. But I am out on Deshaun Watson. I don't think the guy that the Browns traded for in Houston is who they're getting anymore. I think whether it was all the mental stuff from all of his off-the-field issues, whether it was just literally sitting out a year from football, whatever it is, I don't think we're getting that Houston Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. I don't think it's there. I think he can be a good quarterback, but not at the height that he was showing he could be then. So because of that, it brings the potential down on this offense for me. If you're a believer in Deshaun Watson and you think he's going to get back to being what he was in Houston, then this offense might be a couple more spots higher than where I have him, which is totally fine, but I'm just not really seeing that vision as of right now, though. So Browns offense, still really, really good. I'm not with Deshaun Watson, but regardless, very good team, very high ceiling this year. And then if there's any team or any of these rankings that you guys would be pretty upset about, it would be this one right here. At number 11, not in the top 10 for me, is going to be the Cowboys. And I think that when you look at it last year, that team was obviously very good. I think a lot of people really thought, okay, it's really the Cowboys' year, and they fell flat. But you know what? For offensive rankings, that postseason doesn't matter. It is just how good your offense is. And I think Dak Prescott is a great quarterback. I really do. I don't know why he can't translate that play to the playoffs, but I do think he's a great quarterback. I think CeeDee Lamb is a top 5 receiver in the NFL. And I think Jake Ferguson at tight end is one of the more kind of up-and-coming tight ends. I think he's going to be really, really good this season and, and beyond. But your running back room is so questionable. You have Ezekiel Elliott and you have Rico Dowdle. And I don't know what to really make of that because Zeke last year was like, yeah, he was a serviceable running back, but he was almost getting force-fed the ball in New England. Like, he led the team in receptions last year as a running back. Like, he was just kind of getting the ball constantly. I don't know if that's really going to be part of the Cowboys' game plan. So it's like, how is that going to work? How good is the running back room? I don't really know. And other than CeeDee Lamb, there is a talent drop-off. Brandon Cooks is great, but he is not near the level CeeDee Lamb is. And I don't know what to really expect there at wide receiver depth other than CeeDee Lamb. I'm not sure what that's going to look like. So because of that, I have the Cowboys, fairly far down here. I know a lot of you guys are going to disagree with that, and that's completely fine. But I think there's more question marks in this offense than people care to admit right now, at least in my opinion. But with the Cowboys out of the way, we are now down to the top 10. And starting us off at number 10, I just realized it's going to look even worse for Cowboys fans. I had the Packers one ahead of the Cowboys. And because of that, because I had the Cowboys there, I had the Packers ahead of them. And like I just said with the Cowboys, the running back room does not really do it for me. And the lack at receiver depth doesn't do it for me either. The Packers, I think, have a very good running back room. I think Josh Jacobs in Las Vegas, the Raiders are just so bad. Like, they're just so bad. And I think now that he's in Green Bay, he's going to be on a much better team. We've seen what Josh Jacobs can do even on a bad team. I think he's going to be quite good in Green Bay. You still have A.J. Dillon there at backup running back, who I don't think is great, but he's a backup running back. He kind of is what he is. At wide receiver though, I mean, you have like Jaden Reed, you have Christian Watson, you have Dontavian Wicks, you have Romeo Doubs, and then even at tight end, you have Luke Musgrave. Like, you have a lot of playmakers, and they're all quite young. Like, this offense is going to be really, really good for years to come because it's a fairly young quarterback paired with a lot of young weapons. I'm excited to see who the actual wide receiver one is going to be. I think right now, according to the ESPN depth chart, it's Christian Watson, but I kind of feel like Romeo Doubs might be stepping in there as wide receiver one. I'm not going to lie. So we'll see what happens, but I love the Packers offense this year, and I do think it's a top 10 offense. And then next, I'm not going to lie, this might be one I'm a little too low on. I'm going to be real with you guys. It is the Dolphins, and I think the Dolphins are amazing. I think Tua gets a lot of hate, and I'm honestly a believer in Tua. I think he does a great job running that offense. You have Tyreek Hill, and you have Jalen Waddle. You bring in Odell, which I think is definitely interesting. Not sure what to expect from him at this point in his career, but it's definitely interesting. You have Mostert running back, you have Achane at running back, and you have Wright at running back. So you have a lot of weapons, but I guess I'm just higher on the teams above them. So at a certain point, it's like not everybody can be top 8, but if you have the Dolphins, like even as high as like top 5, I understand why. So maybe I'm too low on them, but I am quite high on the teams remaining, and that is why we have 8 teams left. So we're now into the top 8. We have the other 3 rows completed now, so it is now time for the top 8 offenses. And then at number 8 is going to be the Chiefs, and on paper the Chiefs don't look like a powerhouse at all, but then you remember how good Patrick Mahomes is, and that's why they're still in the top 8. You have Mahomes. Isaiah Pacheco at running back, I feel like he's not talked about enough. I think he's a great running back. I'm a big believer in him. So yeah, I like him a lot there. And then at receiver, that's where it was really questionable last year. I think it's definitely better this year, and you were still pretty good last year. So I think it is an improvement. You bring in Hollywood Brown, who unfortunately is hurt, and I don't know if he's back for week 1. I think it's like within week 3, sometime around then. So I guess we'll see when he actually comes back, but I think that was a great move to bring him in. You still have Rashee Rice, who it looks like is not going to have a suspension, so that's even better for the Chiefs. Then you draft Xavier Worthy, who is officially the fastest combine record in NFL history. I think he's going to be very, very good. He's going to show it out in preseason, to be honest. So, yeah, I think he's going to be very good. Still have Travis Kelce there. The Chiefs' offense is very, very good. I know it doesn't look great on paper, but considering it was still pretty good last year and it was even worse, I think it's a step up this year, and I think they will, of course, be competing for another Super Bowl. And then number 7 is going to be the Lions, and I absolutely love the Lions. Starting at running back, though, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is excellent. I think he can definitely be a top 5 running back at some point in the NFL. I think David Montgomery is a really cool compliment to him because he's a good goal line guy. Gibbs can do it all, really, whether it's in the rushing game, whether it's in the receiving game, he can make a lot of things happen. So I like him a lot. At receiver, it's a little interesting, though. So, Amon-Ra St. Brown, I obviously love, top 5 receiver in the NFL at this point, or at least very close to it. But after that, Jameson Williams, I think this is a big year for him because year 1, okay, ACL tear, that's fine. Last year, I think was still a little bit underwhelming in my opinion. So this year, I think, at least in my opinion, is a big prove-it year for him. So other than that, I'm not super sold at receiver. But tight end, though, Sam Laporta, really, really good rookie season. I think he's going to be even better this year. Then, of course, Jared Goff at quarterback, who I think does a great job of running that offense. I think Goff got a lot of hate for a time, whether it was in LA or whether it was, maybe earlier on in Detroit. But I think he's proven that he can be the guy for them. I'm a big believer in the Lions, so yeah, Lions are they're number 7. And then number 6, I have the Ravens. And I'm not going to lie, it feels kind of weird having the Ravens this low. But Lamar really doesn't have great receivers to work with. I think Zay Flowers is phenomenal. I think he's going to have a huge second year. But Rashad Bateman, I'm this close to being out on. I'm giving him this year and like maybe even half the year at that point, honestly. Like, yeah, he got injured and he's been pretty good when healthy, but I don't know if it's really going to happen for him. The biggest thing for me is you have Mark Andrews back and healthy, who's one of the best tight ends in the league when healthy. You have Isaiah Likely there, backup tight end, who in his own right is very good as well. That receiver, it's definitely a little thin. I think you have Devontae Walker, who could definitely step up and take that wide receiver 3 spot away from Nelson Aguilar. But again, this offense is going to be really good because you have Lamar Jackson and you add Derrick Henry, who was one of the more hyped up kind of free agency moves this past season. So I think it's going to be crazy. You're going to have a bunch of, crazy option plays. And I'm calling it now. There's going to be some kind of goal line play where Henry throws it to Lamar Jackson for a touchdown. I guarantee you it's got to happen. So I think the offense is going to be really, really good. You could definitely have the Ravens ranked up a bit higher than this. I wouldn't really... Did I just rank them in the wrong spot and not even realize it? Yes, I did. Okay, I'm not sure how I didn't notice that. And then number 5 is going to be the Texans. I am very, very high on the Texans this year. I understand if you guys have this team lower because it was only 1 year from Stroud. I totally understand that. But I am kind of going all in on the Texans offense this year. Really on the Texans as a whole, but especially that offense. You have Stroud now going into year 2. You have Nico Collins, wide receiver 1. Tank Dell there, of course, going to year 2. And you bring in Stephon Diggs, really proving that you're going all in, full win now mode. I think it was a great move. Diggs is a great receiver. I think he's going to just fit in really well there. I mean, you have one of the best wide receiver trios in the NFL now, and I'm excited to see, hopefully, a full season of Tank Dell because he was doing great until he broke his leg last year. I hope he can bounce back and be fully healthy, which, to be fair, he's looked pretty good in preseason so far. And then also Dalton Schultz still there at tight end. You bring in Joe Mixon at running back, who, while a terrible pass blocker, I think does still have some good football left in him on, in the rushing and receiving game. He's just one of those guys that's like pretty reliable for all-purpose yards. Dameon Pierce still there backup running back. So, yeah, really good team. I'm very high on the Texans this year. That's why I have them top 5. And then there at number 4 is the Bengals. And once again, I am very high on the Bengals this year. I think this is a huge year for them to really see how much they can get done because I highly doubt a year from now when I'm making this video that T. Higgins is going to be on this roster. So I think while you have him there, you got to make it count. You have Jamar Chase. You have T. Higgins. You have either Andre Yoshivas, I think if that's how you say it correctly, at wide receiver 3, or Jermaine Burton, the rookie, who's looked to be really, really good so far. Very athletic and already seems to be a pretty good playmaker. So I think, having Joe Burrow throwing him the ball instead of some guy in preseason is going to be a huge step up. But again, it starts and ends with Joe Burrow. If he is not healthy, this team is bottom 16, maybe even out of the top 16. Like, it's not going to be pretty. So you have to protect him. I think they've done a good job of doing that. They did draft Amarius Mims for tackle to try and help with that. You bring in Trent Brown. They're trying, but if it doesn't amount to anything, this team is not going to hit its potential unless Joe Burrow is healthy. So, but again, a healthy Joe Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks in the entire NFL. You bring in Zach Moss at running back in free agency, and then you also have Chase Brown now going into year 2. I think you have a pretty good running back room. You can feel good about that. And you also have Mike Gesicki there at tight end, which is pretty cool. I always forget about that, to be honest. So, Bengals offense, I'm very, very high on, but now time for the top 3. And then there at number 3 is going to be the Rams. And this is one that I think you guys might be a little surprised me having this high. But seriously, Matthew Stafford played really high-level football last year. I mean, look, I was not high on the Rams at all going to last year. I had them being like a bottom 5 team in the league, and I could not have been more wrong. That offense was phenomenal. Puka Nacua coming out of nowhere, being, like literally having a historic rookie season. Most receiving yards by a rookie in a season. You have Cooper Kupp still there. You have Kyren Williams, who broke 1,000 yards despite missing 7 games last year, which is crazy. And then you also draft Blake Corum for backup running back, which I think is a good move. I think you have a good running back room because of that. And you also draft Jordan Whittington, who is having a great preseason right now. And I have to give a little shout out there because Wide receiver 3, I think on paper right now is Demarcus Robinson. But I'm telling you guys, Jordan Whittington is going to have a starting role by the end of this year. I think he's going to have a very good season. He has, in 2 preseason games, he has like 11 receptions for over 100 yards. So this is someone that Matthew Stafford can definitely utilize. And because of that, I think it's a very well-rounded offense. I think Cooper Kupp bounces back. He's been a bit banged up, but I still think he has some great football left in him. So you have him, Puka Nacua, and you add Jordan Whittington to the mix. I think it's going to be a very, very good passing attack. And you have Kyren Williams, and you have Blake Corum there at running back. I think it's just going to be really, really good for him. So that's why I'm so high on the Rams. That's why they're there at number 2. I have the Eagles at number 2, or I have at number 3. I have the Eagles at number 2 because I'm very high on the Eagles this year. I think they bounced back a lot from last year. Last year was terrible down the stretch. I think you bring in Kellen Moore for offensive coordinator, who I think is, going to be way better than Brian Johnson. Hurts has proven he can play at a high level, and last year was not that level that we've seen him be able to play at. It was a disappointing year. This year, though, I think they bounced back. You still have A.J. Brown, you have Devontae Smith, you have Dallas Goedert, and you bring in Saquon Barkley in free agency. This is someone that can do everything in the rushing game, receiving game, whatever it is. He can be very, very good for them. I think this offense is going to be very good this year. Bounce back big time from last year. Although, you lose Jason Kelce, and it's impossible to really fill that kind of production off one off season. He's literally one of the best centers of all time. So that's definitely going to hurt a little bit. But other than that, I think it's still a phenomenal offense. And then number 1, of course, is the 49ers. Assuming they still have Brandon Ayuk at least. But, you have Brock Purdy there who does a great job at getting that ball all over the field to his plethora of weapons at this point with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield in the rushing game, whatever it is, he's the best running back in the entire NFL. And then, of course, you draft Ricky Pearsall as well for wide receiver. So you have a ton of weapons, amazing offense. This is my rankings for 2024 for the offenses. Let me know down below what teams you disagree with, which ones are too high, which ones are too low. I know there's definitely a few, like maybe the Dolphins or the Cowboys, maybe the Browns, maybe the Rams you guys disagree with. So let me know down below. But make sure if you guys enjoyed the video, though, be sure to subscribe, leave a like. It's free. It helps me out a whole lot. I would appreciate all the support there. Thank you guys for watching. I do really appreciate it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.